Hi everyone, thanks for joining RewardStar's discussion this evening. My name's Robin and I'm the Director of Brand Partnerships at RewardStar's European head office in London. I help leading lifestyle brands in EMEA maximize their revenue through influencer marketing that uses unique performance data to track all sales made across our network. Today, we're focused on the importance of platform diversity and how both brands and influencers can rationalize investment in developing a cross-channel strategy to increase engagement and conversion. I'm very, very happy to be joined by two exceptional creators who we've had the pleasure to have on RewardStar platform for many years. First up, we have Anna Godson.
Hi.
Next is Louise Cooney.
Hi.
Hello. And from the brand side, we're thrilled to be joined by Misguided's Brands and Influencer Manager, Lucy Harden.
Hi.
Hey, Lucy, who we've collaborated with on multiple global influencer campaigns over the years. And to those tuning in, if you have any questions, please come and see us at the RewardStar virtual booth after the session. To kick things off, I'm sure we can all agree that 2020 has been a year of creative destruction and accelerating change across all parts of our lives. This is reflected in the way that we now choose to consume and interact with digital platforms. So with numerous social boycotts and heavy news flooding our feeds, there's uncertainty facing some social and digital platforms today. So I guess the question is, how does nourishing multiple platforms help protect your business as creators and also as a brand? And for that one, I'll start with you, Louise.
Well, I think not having all your eggs in one basket, which is kind of what this whole thing is about, spreading yourself across various platforms allows you to reach different audiences. It allows you to have people engage with your content in different ways. People read blog posts differently than they consume reels. Sometimes people are going for pure entertainment and sometimes people want information and they want details, and blog posts and YouTube videos where you can really share that allows you to do that. So I think it's really important to spread yourself. And also, you can't control algorithms. None of us can. So I think it's really important to, have a good, strong following on various platforms. So if one platform decides to completely change how it works, or if people get tired of it, like what happened, say, with Facebook, a lot of people moved from Facebook, and it's all kind of like a lot of those people would have moved to Instagram. So I just think it's really important to use the various platforms that are out there, see what works, and to give them all time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And also, Emma, you have a strong multi-platform presence too. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think we've all kind of heard those horror stories of someone just kind of waking up one morning and their YouTube is gone, or their Instagram has been hacked and they've just lost everything. So for me, just having one Instagram was just never an option because I've heard those stories. And I think spreading yourself across loads of different platforms, like Louise was saying, you have loads of different audiences in different places. Someone might just want to see images on Instagram because they just want to replicate your outfits. Whereas someone on YouTube might want to actually hear how the fabric falls, how it fits, and just give you a little bit more detail. So I think you get loads of different content in different areas. And I think when you have just that one platform, which you don't own, so no one owns Instagram, no one owns, you don't have control of whether they do shut you down or not. But if you have a blog, which you own, you've created yourself, you have that ownership, which is great. So you can control your audience interaction. You can control if you are going to talk to them and how they can relate to you, if you were to get shut down, let's say. And again, you can get loads of different audiences on a YouTube channel, and it will be totally different on your Instagram. So I think diversifying is so key in this day and age, definitely.
That's a really good point. And I think that point of ownership seems to have come up with both of those responses there, and, being at the behest of, the platform owners. So that speaks back to that diversity point very strongly. I think this is really interesting to hear as well from a brand perspective. So Lucy, how does Misguided leverage multiple channels to strengthen and also protect the brands?
Definitely. Using different platforms at Misguided is really important because we find that each different social channel will give us a very different results and allow us to talk to our customer in lots of different ways. We've still found that Instagram, YouTube and Facebook remain our top sales channels, where we find our customer wants to buy clothes and wants to see inspiration. However, we still maintain that Twitter and TikTok both have really valuable purposes too. So Twitter is really important for providing information and helping to educate our customer on things, find it valuable for customer care. Whereas I think we'll all agree that TikTok's really risen this year. I know it's been around for a little while, but I think especially in our industry, it's become an integral part of our strategy. Yeah. And it's more than just videos as well. I think we've got a lot to look to TikTok for. For example, like our recent campaign that we did for the Sean John X Misguided collection, we really utilised TikTok to run as part of our 360 approach. And we saw really, really strong engagement on there. Mm. Yeah. So I think overall, having multi-platforms is just really important, and just always being on the lookout for those new ones that appear. And when they emerge, making sure you react quite quickly and evolve to bring those into the strategy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, on the evolution point, that is absolutely key at the moment, I think more than ever. Thank you for those answers. So, given the challenges, how can you make sure you aren't spending time and budget developing content where you shouldn't be? So, Lucy, do you have any advice on how you rationalise where you spend time and budget?
Yes. So I think this year more than ever, obviously there's a lot of challenges that have been thrown around by 2020. And I think it's really important to make sure in the planning stages that KPIs are clearly established for each campaign. This is obviously really important to look to your trading calendar and to give each campaign a really clear focus on what you're setting out to achieve. Different channels and types of content lend themselves more easily to meet different objectives. So I think having that really clear focus on what you're setting out to achieve in your campaign allows you to rationalise where you spend time and where you budget.
So how do you, are your metrics different by channel? How do you analyse channel performance?
Yeah, so we find that it really does vary by channel. Instagram and YouTube specifically, we find that ROI and revenue will really differ between channels. We also find that YouTube may have a stronger engagement rate as well. I would say as well, like when planning campaigns, it's really important to work closely with your content creators to understand their individual strengths on each platform, because there's not a one size fits all, and something that might work well for Misguided might be completely different when working with a different set of creators. So I think it's really important to be collaborative in planning.
That's really great to hear. It's really great to hear from a brand as well, because it's certainly something that we advocate, kind of, leaning into your creators and garnering their insights as well on their channels and their preferences and what they know works for them. So I think this is a good time to sort of come back over to you, Emma. And how do you make sure the content you're creating, how do you make sure you're creating content where you should be, essentially?
Yeah, I think for me, it's quite personal. I think I create content that works well for my brand. I think I focus on the platforms that work well for me. I think over the lockdown, the whole TikTok craze happened, as Lucy was saying, and everyone was doing the dances, like everyone was, and I just couldn't catch on. And I felt like, as much as it's good to kind of build a platform on the platforms that are new and up and coming, I always say, like, stay true to what works well for you, because you can easily jump on and start doing all of those dances, but your audience will automatically look at you like, that's not what you're just kind of jumping on the bandwagon. So you've got to just kind of make sure you're doing it and then it kind of works well for your audience. So I haven't really done TikTok content as yet, because I want to make sure the content I do is like impactful and it's valuable, as opposed to just coming on and dancing. So I kind of want to make sure it's quite tailored. So I focus on the Instagram, the YouTube and the blog. But again, that works for me. Information, sharing links, sharing outfits, giving information about how that, like, the clothes feel, how they fit, and reviewing, all of that stuff works well for me over there. So I always say stick to what works for you personally in your brand.
Okay.
That's what I always say.
That's really good to hear. And in terms of finding a style, types of content that suit your creativity, in terms of that ideal process for creating content across multiple platforms, how do you make your time more efficient? How do you kind of analyze the content's performance?
So I check out insights. I make sure I'm looking at what done really well. So likes are great, comments are great, and views are great. But I always say things like saves are much better, because that means the audience are looking at your content and saying, oh, I'm coming back to that at a later date, or I'm going to watch that because I'm going to recreate that outfit, or that for me is super, super like important to look at the saves. And on top of that, looking at things like reward style, looking at the back end of it and seeing who converted, who actually bought something from what you posted. And that, because some people might not comment, they might not like, but they'll buy. So that's a great way for you to actually look and just say, oh, okay, cool, that video's done really well. Because I remember when I started YouTube, I think I was like 3 months in, and I'd done a collaboration with H&M and Joanna Ortiz, and I reviewed the collection just as I would, just talking about it. I didn't think anything of it, posted it, and it done 16,000 views, and I didn't even have like 500 subscribers at the time. So for me, I was looking at it like, oh, you know, it wasn't a big deal. But then when I looked at the reward style, people were buying based off of that video. So it was so important to see how the conversion happened with things like reward style, because you might just see views and think that's it, but it actually goes a little bit further. So yeah.
That's really good to hear about those sort of different complementary data sets that you get from us and other platforms as well. And I think, Louise, it's a good time to sort of ask you, what's your process for making sure you're spending time making the right content for different platforms? You know, what are the ways that you assess channel performance as an influencer?
Yeah, I definitely would look at insights as well, and look at sales, views, likes, comments, all of the different insights that we have available to us. But I also kind of listen to my audience, and I'll ask them, what do they want to see? What do they need help with? Especially coming up to Christmas and Black Friday, you know, I'll ask them, what kind of gift guides do you want to see? What price range are you looking for? That kind of thing. And I look at my analytics on reward style to see what brands are converting, where people shopping, and I will try and base, say, my content this year off what people bought last year, because, you know, it is more or less the same audience. And I will always try and introduce new brands to try or to see, you know, and I'll listen. But yeah, that's kind of how I would prioritize where I spend my time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sort of, you know, listening to your audience as well is a really good message there. I think if we go on to the next question and say, you know, at the moment, due to the pandemic, we're all aware that, you know, brands' marketing budgets are becoming increasingly stretched. They're becoming increasingly scrutinized. There's definitely more pressure to deliver true transparency of results. So on that sort of theme, what do you feel is the next big platform to achieve ROI as a brand or success as a creator, and why? And I think, Lucy, you'd be a good person to start with there again.
Of course. So this year, more than ever, it's really important to be flexible with activity and sort of adapt to changes in plan. And of course, a big change in your plan will come from budget and restrictions there that might happen throughout the year. I think in terms of platforms to watch, TikTok is definitely one to watch, as I can see this becoming much more measurable in the future in terms of ROI. I also think Instagram's development with Reels is really interesting. I think we'll see a lot more developments on the way from Instagram to give Reels the shoppability that we've seen with IGTV. So yeah, I'd say in terms of developments there too that I'd be looking for. I think in existing platforms, though, it's really important to stay close to your analytics. Like with reward style, we just work really closely with our team to measure the transparency of the campaigns we're delivering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, Amma, do you echo those sentiments? You know, what do you think the next big platform is for creators?
I agree everything that Lucy said. I think the video heavy platforms are going to be the ones to watch. I think people, especially over the lockdown, are going to want to be entertained. So a lot of the things where you can, watch content is a great place to go. So YouTube is going to be incredible, I think. Reels on Instagram as well as TikTok. So I think those platforms are definitely going to be ones to watch. So I'm already planning ahead of time.
Yeah. Louise, do you agree with that?
I do, and I actually think as well, blogs are going to become even more important. I think for a while there, for me anyway, I found people preferred video content, but I think because a lot of Christmas shopping this year is going to be done online, and obviously there's just not that footfall in shops, we're not allowed to go shopping. So I just think people will be turning more so to influencers as a catalogue, as like, where can I buy, what can I buy, what's out there. So I think gift guides are going to be really important. Sale guides are going to be really important. That's kind of where I've definitely been making a shift over to give them more time this year.
Yeah. I think that's a really valuable point. We're definitely seeing brands lean into influencers as their digital salespeople, and maybe blog is a platform which particularly lends itself to that process. And again, especially at this time of year, this with the gift guides and those different elements. Lovely. So following on from that, what does success look like when it comes to your multi-platform campaigns or posting strategy? How do you monitor this? For example, as creators, do you rely on, you've mentioned reward style sale analytics a few times to show you which content converted best. So Louise, if we stay with you on this one, you listed your performance metrics just now, and we've talked a little bit about your reward style analytics. Could you share a bit more detail on how you're looking at these insights to inspire content? And if your insights and strategy as a result has changed recently?
So I will look at like particular products that have sold well, and I will, repost them maybe at a later date if I found that people have engaged with it. I'll also check to see if people are clicking through but not buying, why is that? And I'll try and, figure out why that might be happening, and to just consider that when I'm posting in future. In terms of what success looks like to me, definitely conversion is really important. You want people to be buying, you want to be making a return on what you're posting about. But also, I think there's like a couple of different things you could measure success off. Mainly providing value to people. If people are buying what you're showing, then you are giving them value, and you're being helpful. So that's where I would kind of prioritize, like where I find success from, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and that value point's really, really, really nice to hear. And Amma, what does success look like to you? And how do you analyse this across your different platforms you've been mentioning?
Yeah, so I think, just to echo what Louise said, I think for me, I also look at what has kind of had great click-through rates, what people are buying, and then I would repurpose that kind of content. So if I've posted on IGTV, for example, and that content done really well, people converted in reward style, I would do something similar over on YouTube as well, because like I said, I've got 2 different audiences. So know that works really well. I might post something in like image form, just so that, you're using as much content as possible across all of the avenues and all the platforms. But yeah, just staying ahead of the curve and just kind of watching closely and speaking to my audience as well, and just asking them like, what is it that you guys need, and trying to be as valuable as possible, not just so they can just stare at me, but they can actually get something from what I'm posting as well. So success looks like creating impactful, valuable content that is not just something that you can look at and it looks amazing, but it's actually converting, changing lives. People are actually dressing better as a result, or they're finding a bargain as a result of what I do. So that is really what success looks like.
Yeah, I think that point about, you quite clearly said kind of 2 distinct audiences. Can you speak a bit more about that? Is that sort of something you see as being completely distinct with different platforms?
Yeah, definitely. I think with YouTube, people are not, well, I don't watch TV that much anymore, personally. I would rather spend my time watching a lot of YouTube and just kind of consuming that information. So there's people who would love to sit there and binge on YouTube all day long, and that is their form of TV, or that's their form of entertainment. Whereas some people don't really have the time to sit there and watch a 20-minute video. Some people just kind of want to watch a quick 1 or 2 minute IGTV. So you know that some people, there's two different like attention spans. Like some people are really, you know, quick content, just consume it, right, cool, save it. And then some people just want to kind of chill out, lie on their sofa and watch all day. So that is how I kind of differentiate my audiences and make sure I'm creating content for both kind of people. I think that's important, because you don't want to kind of lose a whole audience just because all of your content is super long. So yeah, that is, I think that's key. Just making sure you're doing a bit of both. Both avenues.
Yeah, it's interesting how those audiences are distinct, but they can inform each other in terms of what you're doing for success, and how you can then adjust your content depending on the platform and that audience accordingly. Lucy, so on this point, you know, how does Misguided define success when it comes to multi-platform campaigns? Hopefully we know a little bit about this as Reward Star, as a partner of yours. But, you know, has your approach changed over 2020?
Yeah, so from a brand side, we definitely measure success by revenue and sales. Sometimes when we've worked, especially with Reward Sale, we can see a certain content creators actually cause the product to sell out, which is obviously amazing to see. We look at clicks to site, which then we can unpick a little bit more through click-through rate, and maybe why something's garnering a lot of clicks but not selling out. We also focus really heavily on the engagement rate of a piece of content. And that's a really good gauge, because sometimes you might not see the clicks and the sales. However, you can really see that creator's audience have really, really engaged with an item. From a brand perspective as well, we also look at our customer database and how many customers we are retaining or acquiring through a piece of content. And in terms of how our approach has changed over 2020, we've like everyone, we've had to be super flexible. Our content strategy we've reviewed continuously, really, as news broke and changes were made to the way we were all living and how that impacted our customer. I think the plan has shifted a lot, right down to what kind of products we're selling, with obviously the cancellation of festivals and weddings, and a shift to us all wearing joggers at home. So yeah, we've stayed really, really flexible.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I think if we expand on this, it'd be good to hear about an example of a successful campaign you've worked on, balancing sharing content to multiple platforms. So, you know, we touched on this a bit with you, Emma, just now, how does repurposing content across multiple channels fuel the success? So, Emma, can you sort of kick off here?
Yeah, of course. So I recently done a campaign with Lucy London. Now they're like a luxury everyday wear brand. So they do like really like fancy coats and like fancy wear, basically. And they were very specific about what content they wanted. They said, we want reels. At the moment, reels are doing really well, which is great. So I done a reel for them. And then whilst I done the reel, I thought, let me shoot some image content as well. And the good thing about that is later on, I done a YouTube video about that same piece or the same clothing that they had sent me, but I'd used the images from my Instagram and the reel to insert into the YouTube video. So I'm kind of like not just using it over here, but I was able to take that over here, use them as cutaways in a YouTube video, which just kind of gives a little bit more dimension to what I'm doing, because a picture, you can zoom in, you can look at the stitches, you can look at how it fits. And then with the motion, you can actually see how it flows, how it fits and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think that was super successful because of the way that I made sure I focused on the different types of audiences that I have. You want a little bit more detail, head over to the YouTube. If you just want to see how it looks like when it's in motion, have a little catwalk vibe, go over to the reel. If you want to see the picture and zoom in, you've got a little carousel. So I've given you a bit of option. But yeah, that was a successful campaign. And yeah, it was a great example of that.
Yeah, that really complimentary approach. Thank you. Louise, sort of the same question for you. What collaboration successes have you seen that were about repurposing content across different platforms?
So with H&M, I've worked with them. I work with them kind of all the time, but I worked with them on one campaign, and it just sprang to my mind there. I did a little kind of snippet video for Instagram, and then I did a longer YouTube video talking through each piece. And the little snippet, I said, if you want more information, head over to my YouTube. I also had Insta stories up, linking each piece. So anyone who was considering buying would head to the YouTube to actually make sure, what size should I get? How does it fit? How does it look when you move? And that was really successful. I think to date, it's still my most viewed YouTube video. And that was definitely driven by me, pushing people over from Instagram. And I remember I'd never seen sales like that. And it's funny that you said that about when you did a H&M YouTube explaining, it's obviously the prices are really affordable. So I suppose people just want to know about the fit, and then they're ready to buy. So I did see really, really good conversions when I did that. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I think from a brand perspective, Lucy, can you sort of talk about a time when Misguided's adopted a multi-platform campaign presence and sort of how you've repurposed content potentially to aid the success?
Yeah, so in our recent content-led campaigns with Reward Style, we've really used multi-platforms to amplify the content we're creating with our content creators. We found that working with somebody maybe on YouTube content and then on Instagram, followed up with some like blog pieces or like to know it enabled content, we find that really adds longevity to the campaign. I think in particular, from what we've noticed from our recent work on like to know it, we just really amplify the lifespan of a piece of content. We know that that content lives on a lot longer for the viewer, and that viewers really go into the platform with maybe more intent to buy. So we've seen really strong results there.
Thank you. And that's a really nice segue into what we're looking to talk about next, kind of rounding off this idea of what success looks like. So when we're thinking about the intent of the audience of each channel, sort of correlating the sales and adapting the content, it's interesting to sort of think about how you adapt accordingly for the platform's purpose. And from a reward style perspective, like to know it sees around 4 times the conversion versus other social platforms. So we know that consumers are going there with a high intent to shop versus, for example, just scrolling. So influencer messaging and content pivots to focus on that, sharing value and insights around product sizing, quality, styling, etc. So Louise, as a creator active on multiple channels and as well as like to know it, how do you treat each platform differently based on the intent of the user on sort of each different channel?
Yeah, you have to definitely treat them so differently. So I'll try and be aware, when people want to shop, when they don't. Sometimes people don't like to be oversold to if that's not why they're there. So, for example, on TikTok, people go there, mainly for entertainment. People aren't really going there to shop, not in the same way that they would when they're on a blog. So I have no problem linking things and, saying, here are the sales, here's what you're looking for on a blog post. But you have to be more mindful of creating engaging, entertaining content to engage them on TikTok, on Reels, IGTV. People, I think they're looking for inspiration there, and I think it's okay to link there as well. But I suppose you have to be clever about the way that you're creating the content and making it aspirational and making it something that people want to click through and buy. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's really good to hear. And Lucy, from Misguided, how do you sort of treat user intent per channel on that point? How do you adapt content to suit platform's purpose and the different audiences?
Yeah, so to reiterate what Louise said, we understand that when our customer is on different social platforms, she or he is at a different stage of intent to buy, just like in the wider marketing strategy. So we know that people are at different stages of purchase, depending on what platform they use. So we're always mindful of this when we work with creators and the kind of briefs we work on. We tend to see a stronger conversion rate driven by like to know it and YouTube content, and similarly with the blog. So I think that lends itself to more longer pieces of content that are more give more of a description about the product, and allow for, like we said, if someone's sitting down to watch a YouTube video, they're more likely to engage with a 10 to 20 minute video versus when they're just scrolling on Instagram. They might just be looking for inspiration. So I think using those multi-channels really allows us to get a 360 approach and to create the right kinds of content the customer wants to see at different parts of the shopping experience.
Great, thank you. And that flexibility again really shines through, which is a great attitude to have. I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to kind of go to our last point. And, you know, as we wrap this session, and also as we wrap 2020, we've all made it, we're all here, and we look ahead to 2021. You know, I'm sure we're all hopeful for a year of new opportunity, progress, innovation within our channel. What are your hopes for your businesses? Anna, how about you?
Exactly what you just said, Robin. All of those things. I really want to be creating impactful content, valuable content. I think my focus now is not just to kind of have an outfit on and that's it. I kind of want to make sure I'm giving a little bit more knowledge about why this works and why it shouldn't work and what works for this kind of shape and what works for that kind of shape. Because obviously I have a background as a stylist as well. So I want to kind of incorporate that into my content a little bit more, focusing on diversifying a lot of my content. So repurposing all the things that I've shot previously that worked well, using it on different platforms, and then growing, creating a bigger audience.
Right. Yeah. It's good to have those big goals, absolutely. Louise, what about yourself?
Well, I suppose that this year, like I was mainly fashion before this year, and I've had to really adapt and change my content to suit my audience because, like, as much as fashion is still really important, it's maybe, you know, the type of things we're buying, it's very different. You know, it's more lifestyle based. It's more about comfort. I think homes, interiors are becoming more important because we're all spending more time there. So next year I'm going to try and put more of a focus on lifestyle, on home, while still incorporating the fashion, but I suppose to grow, and I suppose as my journey continues, I'm not going to hopefully be stuck at home forever. So to try and adapt the type of content I'm doing to that as I go, you know, incorporating all the different channels. So yeah, hopefully 2021 will be better.
Onwards and upwards. And Lucy, any resolutions yet?
Oh, definitely just looking forward to 2021, and not just because it's the end of 2020. Resolutions, I think, to continue to be flexible and reactive to change, and just hoping to see continued growth in sales in our market and to really develop our social and influencer strategy at Misguided.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And that is definitely all we have time for. Thank you for our brilliant panelists for sharing your insights. I think we really got into what success looks like when it comes to adopting multi-channel strategies. I hope everyone that tuned in found it helpful into scaling influencer marketing activity. And also to everyone watching, if you've got any questions and you want to know more about delivering impact from ROI across influencer marketing, please do visit the RewardStyle virtual booth. We'll be on hand with our AGS, our influencer team, as well as our brand team to share success stories, strategies directly with you there. So once again, thank you everyone for tuning in, and massive thank you to all our panelists one last time. And that's it. So goodbye, everyone.